This is the ClePunk podcast. This is dedicated to the Cleveland punk scene, a scene that planted its flag in the 1970s and that flag still stands today. You'll hear from the bands, the characters, the contributors, the lake rats, the gypsies of the Dead Man's Curve, and the dwellers of the East, West, and South Side. We let them tell the story like it isn't like it was. There's no holding back. What it was ClePunk. Welcome to the ClePunk podcast, and today we're happy to be with Dark and Robert Griffin from the band The Dark, gentlemen, and we're going to talk about their new release coming out, like probably before this is posted, but at any rate, Dressing the Corpse is coming out real soon, the next few days, by The Dark, and I don't know. You guys talk a little bit about it. Tell me about what's going on with the release. We'll start with that.
You want to take this?
I will. Robert can take this.
I guess it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. Tom texted me one day. I think we were talking about something or other, and he's like, "Hey, would you ever possibly do a Dark album?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, actually, sure. You know, this people seem to want to hear the Spike and Main shit, so they'll probably want to hear the Dark too." And we got all that together, and then it took a year and a half for the pressing plant to fucking finish it. I mean, not the entire time, because I figured out that the records actually sat on the dock at the plant for about 3 weeks.
Oh.
Because the outside of the boxes have the date they were packed.
No kidding.
And the date they were shipped is like 3 weeks later.
Where's the plant?
Camarillo, California.
Well, there you go.
It's a great fucking pressing plant, so I put up with it.
That's awesome. Well, it's a cool it's a great comp of what you guys did, and for someone that had only heard a couple of your songs over the course of time, like from New Hope and Cleveland.
That was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Because one thing I always wanted to do with The Dark is like, man, if you just took all the best shit from the album and unreleased crap and whatever, that's a really solid 36-minute album.
Oh,
so
yeah. Easy.
That's what we did.
So how did you guys start? There was a band called the Decapitators. Is that how it went, Tom?
Yeah, I met Robert when we were going to high school and
junior high.
I knew that was coming, and I basically shoved my record collection and turned them on all these bands. And according to him, I guess I played him the Pagan's second single, which was Street Where Nobody Lives, What's the Shit Called Love.
On the phone.
And that was on the phone, and that's where I guess everything changed for him. Because when I first met him, he had long hair, and he was into Zeppelin and Sabbath and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, that's all cool, but check this out.
I had a few punk records. I had heard the Dead Boys on M105 of all places. And I had like the X-Ray Specs single and a couple others.
Oh, Bondage.
And
or the Dayglow.
It was the one after that. The Dayglow one, because you could see the orange vinyl. It's like, whoa, absolutely. I was really into colored vinyl.
So that was like late 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then through another guy, I met Tom. And the first guy had all these records I didn't know about. And then I met Tom. It's like, oh, this guy has all the records. All of them. So we just hung out at his house constantly, just 145 after
That's
another.
How you did it.
And I knew he was going to be a music guy because he had this hairbrush jive that he used to do, man. It was like the all-purpose instrument. Toss it up in the air, catch it. It's a microphone. Guitar solo. Weep, 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 weep. Just nailing that hairbrush, man. Like just born performer.
Oh, man.
So at some point, he and his brother Scott was starting to play bass and picked it up super quick. And they're like, let's start a band. And we did.
And that was...
That's all. Plus,
that was the Decapitators?
Plus my brother...
Yeah, 79.
I was, yeah, 79 to 80. But my brother knew, he was friends with this guy David Araka, and they were like best friends. And so David was a natural on drums because he used to watch his brother Adam. And so when we asked those guys to play, they adapted to it very quickly. Like all four of us, we just bonded very well. I mean, everything with the Dark was, or should I say, the Decapitators, which became the Dark. Everything was music, listening to music. I mean, we picked up fanzines. We wanted to know about everything was a big mystery back then, but it
Yeah.
was a very exciting time.
Yeah,
That's great.
take the rapid or the bus to different record stores and
Yep.
just hang out and walk around, and the rest of the time sit around the house listening to records or watching horror movies. Like we'd stay up late and listen to Michigan Mom on RUW
Oh yeah,
before she became totally obsessed with Howard Devoto. And still played some punk records. And
it was Lars and Larry, Michigan Mom, and then record store wise, of course, the Drome, Johnny Dromata. I mean, we went to
every
all
week,
three every week, and then we went to Record Rendezvous
Yep.
downtown where Jim Jones, Randy Maggot worked, and that was just like,
Coventry too.
Yeah,
yeah,
Coventry.
Coventry.
That's right. They had great. They had a couple good stiff, and a couple of them were pirates.
Oh
What was the
yeah,
other one down there? Wax Dax. No, it was another one besides
um,
Stiff. I smoked weed with Graham
I
Parker in
think,
one of them.
Record
oh,
Rendezvous,
No, not Rendezvous. I think it was Stiff. Or what the hell was the other one? Record Exchange.
Re- Record
Record
Right.
Exchange.
Exchange.
No, it
Yeah,
was one of the
check
two.
your bag.
Graham Parker was in there with the rumor, and we smoked weed with him. He was. I think Enkler was with me. We were having a great time.
Oh
Can't
yeah,
remember, but but there were lots of good record stores. The drum was our go to. We were on the east side, so we had to make a trek out there. It wasn't that bad, but we get out there every week or so. And I worked at the Rendezvous in the mall, so it was like we didn't get into the Rendezvous much, but we'd go down there too. But that's how you did it. You just listen to music, right? And none of it's
yeah.
until you mentioned it, it never really dawned on me that most of the people that I can go back to, nobody was playing when we first started listening to it. Like I played guitar and stuff, but
No,
it was like people learned because of that music. I mean, I sat and watched Sableye go from one chord to riffing like in 6 months, and you just what and it's like people just got they wanted to play. Doug, he was the same way. He just eventually, yeah, they just grew into it. So that is interesting. But and I don't want to spend too much time on the fact that you guys were young because you were not a novelty, but you guys were so tight and you got it like
appreciate that.
right
Well, thank you.
away. No. I mean, if I just think if you dwelled on the fact, and I'll be honest, I mean, people thought about you as young. I mean, that was kind of the way
It
that
was
was the.
always the thing.
And I remember you come. There was talk about y'all before I took off, and it was always positive stuff. And Michael was, sponsoring that stuff. But did you guys have an intention? Because you guys were running the cusp of hardcore too, and your sound is real hardcore. But hardcore was I don't remember it really being quite defined in that early 81. You know what I mean? I always think of it just a little later, maybe 6 months later, a year later, but then it was like, oh, and then all of a sudden hardcore was out there, and Jerry's Kids and the LA bands and the Boston bands and Cleveland started with the Defects and you got did you guys intend to be a hardcore band or was it just the sound that you had and the energy
No,
that you had that turned into that?
basically, in my opinion, I think as we went down the line, we started developing more of a sound that was like when we caught on to bands like Black Flag, Necros, Negative Approach, Minor Threat. Um, we wanted to play faster, but at the same time, we also like death rock bands like Christian Death and 45 Grave, and we like that TSOL Dance
Oh
with
yeah,
Me.
yeah, that was good.
We love that album, and so Robert incorporated all these, a different style. I mean, it was a lot of it was like we could play fast, but then we would slow things down too. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to do every song super fast.
Absolutely.
There
And
was a period about 4 or 5 months, though, maybe even 6, where
mhm.
fast, 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 and you like faster, faster.
Everybody
You
goes
and
through
Scott, and even Dave, everybody but me. And I'm like, oh
it.
man,
Everybody goes through it.
I can't keep up, guys. There's tracks on that album. If you listen to the guitar part, it's like I'm always like 1/8 of a beat behind everybody else. I just cannot play that fast.
That's punk guitar, though. I mean, it's tough to stay out in front. You're not Brian Setzer. You're not playing out in front. You're playing that. You're kind of that drone, in punk, right? So
Yeah,
it's like kind of you get
yeah.
away with it a little bit more, but don't sell yourself short. But we're gonna play a bunch of songs while we're doing the interview today, and the first one I want to spin is called "I Can Wait," and apparently the first recording you guys did on November 22nd, 1981. So
Makes it easy to remember.
absolutely, JFK Day.
It's one of the few dates I've never ever forgotten.
Yeah. So, well, you don't mean to laugh, but no, yes, exactly. It's one of those seminal dates. But let's listen to "I Can Wait," and then we will be back and talk more about the cut. So we just heard "I Can Wait" off "Dressing the Corpse" on Scat Records by The Dark. And so who wrote that song?
Robert did.
Robert did.
Robert
Was that the primary?
wrote a lot of the songs.
Really? Good for you.
Yeah, that was
Excellent.
one of the first ones. And we had, I want to say, like 6 or 7 of our own songs in the Decapitators. Get Decapitated is one of them.
Oh man,
And Action Now.
we had
Those are the only ones that
With the
are.
hairbrush.
wow. I don't remember any of them. It's like I know we had like about 8 songs in Decapitators, and then the rest were covers.
Yeah, we
did
knew like 30 covers.
we did like the Ramones, Pagans, Germs, Crime, and God,
Dead Boys, a lot of Dead Boys.
Dead Boys, and we were supposed to play for 2 hours, but we played for an hour and a half. And one of the things you also did, remember the drum solo, and then you did that guitar thing,
Oh,
which was
like some sort of like
Yeah,
feedback noise thing.
yeah, avant-garde thing. But they didn't. We didn't play for 2 hours, and plus the fact I went full blast into these folding chairs, and they knocked everything over. They were not happy with that.
Yeah, the kids all scattered. They were all.
Where was this at?
It
was a totally straight crowd. Like it wasn't a punk crowd. It was like the youth center in the basement.
It was in the basement of a church called The Well, and there's like a lot of cover bands that played there. The band at the time in Shaker Heights was this band called Attic. They were like the big cover band. They maybe had one original, and then we
He
got
had
a
a
show
white guy.
there, and that's when the city was in default. That's when Dennis Kucinich was uh, mayor, and I remember I got a jaywalking ticket downtown when I was posting flyers for the gig and everything.
Yeah, that
Yeah, it was Heights Christian Church at Van Aken and Avalon in the basement
now was that
there.
the Decapitators or the Dark?
The
That's
Decapitators.
cool.
Decapitators.
It
And then a year later, we
So
became
then,
the
yeah,
Dark on November 1st, 1981.
so you cranked out
that was our first
I Can
practice.
Wait and a couple of these
3
songs
weeks later.
really quick. So and you recorded that at
Mhm.
Cat City? That was
Yes,
We
but
should tell about Cats.
was that Crossan's place? No.
no,
Okay.
that was Bobby
Okay.
Horsemeyer.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a big house in East Cleveland, and he had like lots of books and records, and there was like a lot of cats all
A
over the
lot of
place,
cats.
and there was like a lot of people that would hang out there, and we went down there in the basement. I believe it was a 4-track machine. Mike had
No, it was a cassette deck.
a
They
cassette
had a
deck. Okay,
4-channel mixer, I think, and that was going into a cassette
Wow.
deck.
Wow.
But they were both so high. They kept like fucking with the levels while we were recording
yeah.
because they were like kept, oh no, this is too loud or that's too loud. And
Did
Uh-huh.
you separate
so
track?
there isn't one recording where the levels stay the same throughout. Like the guitar or the voice or something is always getting up or buried
Holy
in the
shit.
mix.
Was it just a live recording going into separate tracks or did you actually yeah, cool.
Yeah, all live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that when we got the tape of it, I wasn't particularly very happy about it. I thought it was very muffled. It didn't really capture us. So I talked to Mike and I'm like, well, I'm not really happy with it. So he goes, well, I've got a place. And that was Mike Crossan's studio, where we did I Can Wait, the second version, which appears on the Cleveland Confidential album. That's also where the Easter Monkeys recorded Cheap
Okay.
Heroin, which also appeared on Cleveland Confidential.
I think the Def Mix track was recorded at Crossan's place too.
Yeah. I recorded there
Yeah,
once.
Suicide Trip.
I mean, it was a cool. He was great to work with. I recorded one song with him,
Yeah.
and real nice guy. After I left Cleveland and came back, actually, so it was like, but he was a real super guy, except for Tim Kelly puking all over the floor of his studio. But whatever. So how did it end up on Cleveland Confidential?
Tom, when we were young, used to just fucking call people up. Like he would ring up Stiv Bators at his parents' house, and sometimes he'd be there and he'd find out what's going on with the Dead Boys. So he was never shy about approaching people, and he had heard about the Cleveland Confidential record and got in touch with Hudson about it. I think maybe you even offered like, "Hey, I could help out
Oh yeah.
in financially or whatever." Like, and by the way, I've got this band. Maybe we could get on there, and we met him down at Mosier's on 4th Street,
Auto
Right.
Mosers.
and Mike told us how the financing of the record was going to work, which was kind of a shock to, 15-year-old like me.
It was a shock to
But
21-year-olds
it
like
was
me.
like, you know, 1 in the afternoon, and everybody in the bar is half plowed, and
Uh-huh. That's where like a lot of people hung out, and,
Yeah.
and I think it was like I think he was really knocked out when he saw Scott and David, because at that time they were like what, 12, 13,
they were 13.
and he and I were like 15. And I remember, yes, I did offer to put up some money to help, help get the compilation out. And then after the cross, and we decided, okay, that's good. That'll come on the album. And then there was a benefit for the album, and it was January 9th, 1982 at Tucky's. And that's where we performed for the first time. And I remember that. very well. We took the Rapid down, and Robert had his guitar, and my brother had his bass, and David just had his drumsticks. So we were walking in the snow, and we went there, and we knocked on the door, and there was a sliding door and it was Jeff Redding, and he's like, "Yeah," and we're like, "We're the Dark," and he goes, "Okay, come in, but don't walk around the club," you know. And I remember we played down in the basement, and there was a bar, but they had some swings. Some of the chairs were like swings.
They're like leather bucket seats that
Yeah.
hung from chains because
Mhm.
it had been like an S&M themed strip joint before it was Tucky's.
And I do got to tell you this. It was Dave E came down from the Electric Eels, and his band, the Jazz Destroyers, was on there, and he was like really mad about his cut, and he had that big afro, and he had these like big like frog kind of mud boots on, and he got all mad and everything, and he was cussing Hudson out, and he punched him in the face, and he like walked out and go, "Wow, this is great!" I'm just like I'm experiencing.
Morton gets
this.
all the headlines, but Davey can throw a punch too.
So that was like, you're just like, and I had just discovered the Electric Eels when the first single came out on Rough Trade, and that's, my God, that's a godlike
First song
single.
the four of us ever played together was Agitated.
Yeah.
Because 2 chords, Dave knew the cool drum beat.
Yeah.
And plus,
That was
Dave E's he's a musical genius. I mean, his lyrics are so over the top. I can't believe.
Yeah.
People have asked me, they're like, "That guy's a genius," and I'm like, "I know." And he's from Cleveland, and they were punk rock before there was punk rock.
Totally.
And even though
I just want to say they had the rat traps and the safety pins and all that stuff way before any of that stuff in England happened. Way before. So if anybody wants the first punk band, it would be the Electric Eels, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a shame the record didn't come out until 77 or whatever it was, because I remember picking it up right after it came out down at the Drome, and had it came out because they recorded it long before that, didn't they?
75.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a shame it sat there, because that would have really been more of a splash, as it were, and add to the credibility. Because by 77 there was just a morass of not a morass of shit, but there was a lot of shit starting to come out. There was a small market, but there was a lot of stuff starting to come out, 4 or 5 every couple of weeks, down at Johnny's place or someplace. So but yeah, the Eels were it. So how'd you first get? And so when you met Hudson through Cleveland Confidential, and then how did he become your godfather or whatever he became?
It was when we played that show at Tucky's, that first gig, it went really well. And right after our set, he's like, "I want to manage you guys."
Okay.
And we're like, we
Okay.
couldn't believe it. We're like, okay. To us, it was like we worship the pagans.
Sure.
We absolutely love those
Yeah,
guys.
if there was any band,
and we're
we
just
would
like,
all agree on.
we're like, oh my God, he wants to manage us. So from there, he just started setting up shows, and he would pick us up in his car with his wife Mary, and they would take us to these shows. And after Tucky's we played the Pop Shop, this benefit for RUW. And then the third one was at this place in Kent called Garbage Incorporated, which is above a supermarket. It's basically in someone's apartment. There's a little record store, but they took everything out.
Excellent.
And that was our first exposure to skinheads, which happened to be Zero Defects. Right. And I remember it was a small little room. I mean, we played, but it was like so funny. It was like someone who was, I think it was maybe Bob Sablack, was trying to stick a joint in Scott's mouth while he was playing. And when we first got there, Tommy Strange, the guitarist for the Zero Defects, we heard in the background, he goes, let's butt fuck these guys. Yeah. And we're like, what the hell? And we're like, he wasn't
fucking scared, man.
We were like totally scared.
All these fucking skinheads just walking around yelling, like there's not even any music playing. They're just yelling.
Yeah, but they had to love you guys. I mean, they really.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Because like
Jimmy Image, the singer of Zero Defects, recorded that whole thing at Garbage Incorporated, and he goes, can I put this on a tape, which turned out to be There Is More.
Okay.
And then he put out another tape after that called There Is Even More. So
There's always more. Um,
But I think we missed the question, though. You were asking about screeching metal,
well, I was sort
right?
of, but we can bounce
Okay.
all over the place. But it was more, yeah, I was like trying to segue out of like where when Hudson kind of got involved with y'all, and then
Okay.
I know Screeching Metal was, kind of around that, and then that had legs elsewhere on the New Hope stuff. So why don't we take 2 seconds and or a minute and X and play Screeching Metal and come back and talk about that with the Dark, Tom and Robert.
Screeching metal, I've lost control. Screeching metal,
So we just heard Screeching Metal by The Dark, and that was the first song you guys learned together. We sort of cut on that a little bit, right?
We were just talking about that. It was either that or Put Your Hand Through the Plastic. Those were the first two, and I had I Can Wait, and then I think maybe a month in, I had another song that has never come out, but was recorded along with those other tunes.
Right.
A song called Into the Dark.
Into the Dark.
It should have been like, it was supposed to be like, a theme song, but it was just plotting. So,
all right.
And nobody was into it, and after a while, I wasn't.
It's a good song. It might be released.
Good.
Who knows?
Yeah,
that's cool. Now you recorded this in a living room. Tell me about that. So, like, whose living room was that? I read that in the credits. It said, I can imagine like somebody's
Peter.
parents.
What's his last name?
Sclover.
I'm embarrassed
However
about
you pronounce
this.
that. Sulliver?
I believe so. Yes.
Would you just break into the place or something?
No.
It's like you don't know the guy.
After the thing at Cat City didn't work out, I think this was another backup plan because Mike came back to us with well, you guys need a recording. And we're like, what's a recording studio? Where is one? Does it cost money? And so through David, this session wound up happening, but both of us totally forgot about it. And Tom randomly ran into the guy. Was it at work?
No. We found each other on Facebook.
Okay.
And the weird thing about it is, he was like talking to me on Facebook, and out of the blue, he goes, "Oh, by the way, I have this tape recording in the dark." And I'm like, "Huh? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I have this reel-to-reel tape. Remember, we recorded in my parents' house." And I vaguely remember that. I'm like thinking, "Huh?" And
when he first told me, I was like, "What?" I don't remember this at all.
Robert,
now I remember a little.
It's very strange because what happened is David, our drummer, and his brother knew Peter. They were very good friends, and it kind of was like, I think randomly he's like, "Well, we can just go over and he'll record us." They have this, 4-track or 8-track, and so as Peter told me, he and his brother, Mark, I guess their parents were out of town or working, and they just rearranged the furniture, and we set up and we did 4 songs. We did Screeching Metal, we did Put Your Hand Through the Plastic, we did Into the Dark, and we did a Pagans cover, What's a Shit Called Love. And then that was that. And so he hung on to this tape. I think what it was is he recorded it as like a fun kind of little thing, to have. And then, but we never got copies of it. I don't think none of us really.
We weren't impressed with it at the time. We were thinking like, well, this still isn't good enough to put on the compilation.
Of course, it sounds good now.
Yeah,
we heard it when we heard it.
Shit on the whole album.
But what he told me, getting back to him, he's like, "Oh, I got this tape," and I said, "Well, could I listen to it or have it?" And eventually he was like, "Sure." And the weird thing about it is, when I met him at his house, I could not go into his house. And he's taking care of his mom. That's all I'm going to say about that situation. But he had the tape, and he had all these fanzines and flyers and a lot of stuff he got from the Araka family, like some of their belongings. And he gave me the tape, and a friend, another guy through Facebook, Paul Rogers, had some reel-to-reel machines. He goes, "Oh yeah, I've got tons of these." He goes, "Send the tape to me, and I'll transfer it." And I was like, "Great." And so he transferred it, and he sent me the stuff on CDR, and he sent the stuff back to me. And then from there, me and Matt Lindsay kind of mixed it, so to speak. And and then Robert heard it, and then I think things blossomed from there. Like,
yeah, that's part of the genesis of the record, is finding that tape, I think.
No kidding. Do you do
Yeah.
most of the mixing? Like, is there, because that process has got to be taking it from old stuff and digitizing it.
Well,
Once it's transferred, that's half the battle. I mean,
Right.
saving a tape that old that's going to shed constantly. So just getting it digitized is huge. And then it's just a quarter-inch 4-track, so it's not that hard to
Right.
mix. But I can't
You
believe
don't
it
have a lot of
sounds as good as
capability.
it
Yeah.
does.
Well, that one, I had separate tracks still in that one. It's that 4-track, but depends on how once he converted it over. But
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, I imagine, bass and drums on the same track, stereo, guitar, and vocal.
He was telling me earlier, David, our drummer, thought that his drums didn't sound good. Like they sounded like tinny.
Yeah, he thought they were a little too thin. I think Scott did too. They were both a little down on it.
So
you were talking about
So
now,
one aside about this period that I think is really cool is we were usually tuned to like anywhere from E flat to D flat, or I guess technically C sharp, because Scott's bass was missing the tuning peg for the low string.
you gotta be
So as
shitting
time
me.
went on, our tunings got lower and lower because we couldn't adjust that string. And then Scott got a new bass, and all of a sudden we started playing in key and sometimes even tuning up to F. So, or whatever one of the guitars was tuned to, because no electric tuners.
No, but
But I kind of wish we had really stuck with those low tunings, because that's become such a staple in heavy music.
yeah, it has.
But the way we did it, it's an older, almost 1970s kind of approach. And yeah, I just really dig that sound. I wish Scott had never gotten a new
Well,
bass.
and that's what inspired it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, everybody like just meshed really well together. I mean, like there was a double CD later, or should I say before, in 2006, that was put out by a label called Grand Theft Audio, and it's got studio stuff, and then it has some live stuff on it. But I had all the tapes, and I saved all that stuff, and thank God it got transferred and everything. And the guy did a wonderful job with it. The booklet is huge with a lot of rare photos I haven't even seen myself,
okay.
because we had to like get stuff through other people that took photographs at shows and this and that. But anyways, when I handed the CD to my brother, he just could not believe we recorded all that stuff. And at the age that he was just like, there's like 78 songs on that CD, and he's like, I can't
How did this
believe
happen?
like we recorded all this stuff and you hung on to it and everything. And I mean, some of it is like sounds even twisted, or I mean, the first track on even Dressing the
Right.
Corpse, that's actually us.
Well,
I remember that's Robert going on this thing, and you hear like one of us
Taurus bass pedals.
yeah, it's like going bing, hitting
And it all came from David Araka, just randomly when he was out walking. He had a tape recorder with him, and he recorded himself walking through, hard snow where it's frozen on top and it crackles a lot. And he came to practice with the tape. He's like, Robert, I think you'll really dig this. And I'm like, oh, this is great. We can do this and that. And so when we recorded the album, I'm like, Dave, bring that tape. We need to put some shit on top of there. And it's a great way to open a record.
which is like, no, I mean, if you think about it, nobody did that. I mean, we put this all together because you're thinking, whoa, did you take this off of some like soundtrack or something like? No, that's really us.
no, and it
doing
did. It
that.
sounded like bumper music. Like I was listening to it, going, "Yeah, that's bumper music for a radio show."
And that later on became a total staple of like every other black metal record ever made. And here we are doing it. It's a little punk rock.
Punk Records with
So I think that's pretty
78
cool.
recordings. I don't know.
Mhm.
So these WRUW cuts that y'all put on Dressing the Corpse. How was that booked? That was a multi-band show, right? or was it just you
No,
guys in
it was
studio?
a live radio broadcast.
Yeah, just down in the studio.
Mike Hudson set that up,
Okay.
and he goes, "You're going to be live on the radio on WRUW 91.1."
Yeah, they had a band. They had a program live at Studio A every Sunday at 2 o'clock. Some band would play,
No kidding. So
and they called our number.
so how many cuts did you guys play? I know there were 2 on the record, but
We played for an hour. All of them are on the Scream Until We Die CD that Tom mentioned.
okay.
Yeah, that came out in 2006 on Grand Theft Audio. By the way, that was the first reunion we did, minus David Araka, who unfortunately passed away in '94. We had a friend of ours, Sean Saley,
Who plays in Pentagram.
who plays in Pentagram.
Fucking legit.
Played in the Agitated, Starvation Army, and he lives up in the Baltimore, D.C. area.
Okay.
So, or should I say Maryland, D.C. area?
No, he's a hell of a drummer. He's
He's a phenomenal.
It's
drummer.
hilarious though. Like there are so many pictures of the Dark. We're just like right off at the edge of the photo. Sean is there staring Dave down, like checking out his technique and trying to learn everything he possibly can.
No kidding.
David was so good.
That's awesome. Well, I was going to take a pause and play the 2 cuts that you have on this record, which is "You Got What You Wanted" and "6 and Change," if that's cool with y'all. And
That's
Yeah.
fine.
so let's play those.
Yeah, bear in mind, Mike Hudson is in the room when we're playing.
Well, I got a question about that. So
okay.
let's
leave that
let's
for
hear
later.
those 2 cuts, and then we'll be right back with Tom and Robert from the Dark.
1, 2, 3, 4. Honestly, you saw where I pointed. You sat down with the pull of your trigger. You stole from me, you lied to me. And the word that got around your finger. You got what you wanted. You got what you wanted. You got what you wanted. Other than you thought were important. You sat down with the pull of your trigger. You stole from me, you lied to me. And the word got around your finger. You got what you wanted. You got what you wanted. You got what you wanted. All the things you thought were important. You sat down with a phone with trigger. You stole from me, lied to me. And the word wrapped around your finger. You got what you wanted. 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 Let's do 6 and change. Do 6 and change. Man and woman, hanging around. That's what you get for laying around. Not there, sick of the ring. I don't cost you in succession. 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 Man and woman, hanging around. That's what you get for laying around. I don't think sick of the ring. scenario, baby.
So we just heard You Got What You Wanted in Six and Change, that were live from a in-studio WRUW show in 82, July, I think y'all said. And You Got What You Wanted is a cool tune. I like that. It's got these kind of like G, B flat. Like it's kind of got.
You made me think about it, and we're actually playing it with Tom's
Oh, are you really?
band
Because it
next
doesn't
week.
it
Yeah.
doesn't it go from like a G to a B flat? It's kind of got this weird little funk.
But there's like it's basically A, B flat, B, but there's a little flourish after the first
Okay,
chord.
like a
that's,
passing
D and E
Okay.
flat.
But and Scott just blisters those bass lines, right? I mean, that thing is a really good
Oh,
cut.
yeah.
And Tommy, you sing with so much energy on all that shit, man. And I would have loved to have seen you
Thank
guys,
you.
man. Dave's fills on, especially there's like this mini bridge towards the end. You couldn't even replicate that shit. Those were like quadruplet triplets, they were just such a sweet fucking thing. You just couldn't do it. And
Yeah, it's insane.
and I always get like, I'm always a guitar tone guy, and I was going to mention like, Griff, you always played Fenders, and I don't want to get too like freaking gearheaded shit here, but every swinging dick in Cleveland played a fucking Gibson, right? I mean, everybody played a Gibson, and they loved that fucking humbucker, just blister the fucking mix, and it just bleeds out everything, and it's just over distorted. And a couple guys pulled it off, like Cheetah could play his Fender. I mean, his Gibson with a little authority, and he was great at it. And Medoff played a Gibson, but those are like an ES or something. He had like P90s or something. But everybody else played Gibsons. And I noticed you were like one of the first ones that was playing a Strat. I've always been a Fender go-to guy. I mean, like fucking Gibsons I have Gibson acoustics all over the place, but not Gibson electrics. What made you? How many plain dealers did you deliver to get your first Fender, and why'd you sort on that?
That was a lot of plain dealers. I had like 3 or 4 paper routes. It was up to like 150 customers at one point.
For you.
Wow.
But like 40 or 50 of them were in one high rise. So that was like,
well, that's easy. There you go.
Especially
in the winter.
winter.
Yeah. We were still trying to ride our bikes.
It's 5 below and a foot of snow, but I'm inside just walking down the hallway, taking the elevator up. Anyway, I started out, my first electric was a Les Paul copy, cheap ass Crestline, went out of tune constantly, hated it. So started saving up my money, and Fenders were cheaper than Gibsons at the store. It's as simple as that. Yeah. But also, I liked how it felt, how it hung off my body, as opposed to
totally
how heavy the body of a Gibson is. And I liked the longer neck, because my fingers trip over themselves a little bit, and having some space to work is it's easier for me.
I remember,
and I just learned to live with the guitar, even though I it probably has a whole lot to do with how the Dark sounded, because I didn't want to play power chords. I did, but I tried to avoid it.
Yeah.
And when you're not playing fifths, it resonates differently. And especially if you're playing single notes or just a couple notes, like I wanted to fill out the sound, and I didn't have the infinite sustain of a Gibson. So my solution was to use droning strings and harmonics, and it led me to make lots of choices playing wise to compensate for the fact that I didn't have a Gibson.
Yeah.
And that just stuck with me the rest of my life.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And plus, when I rehearse by myself, I never plug in. So I have no sustain. So I'm always trying to, make it rounder, or,
right.
Sound like it's more than one person playing.
Right. Now, you did 6 and Change on that, put it on the record. You did it that day. And it was slick that you honored that track. And after talking to you for a little bit, obviously, it makes sense to why, but it kind of takes guts to get out and play 6 and Change. Like there wasn't a lot of cover songs going on.
Of Mike Hudson.
Yeah. I mean, it was. Yeah, I mean, he was there too. So it was just you didn't do a lot of.
And Tom's like, "Oh, the legendary old pagans." But it's 1982. Like, how many more times?
Yeah, and that was the second iteration, But you really opened up the kimono on that one, because like it could have been, you fucked that shit up and then all of a sudden, even though it's a live studio thing, you could have cut it, but it's like it's good that you picked that song and you did it, and it's cool. And one of the things I really liked was
We probably played it like 30 or 40 times in the Decapitators.
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
All those
yeah.
songs.
Oh, yeah.
The whole Pagans catalog. We knew all those songs. One of our friends in the room could have been like, Dead End America, and we would have whipped that out.
Mhm.
I like before you hit the first E chord in that, somebody starts talking about Hit Squad on the tape.
Scott Lash.
Is that who it is?
That's
He's like,
Scott
come on,
Lash,
play
yeah.
Hit Squad. Hit Squad's great. Come on. And I'm telling you, the reason I say that is I fucking love Hit Squad. Like, I think that's, I pick out, like there's all kinds of songs I like from y'all, but that one just like I said, I kind of, that was like a hardcore song to me. When I hear it, I go, well, yeah, right. It has all the trappings of a hardcore song. And it takes me back to that, because there was no hardcore really in Cleveland in 81 middle. So it was like I kind of spawned that shit in Texas. And it took me a year before I kind of grew out of it and got into Austin music and shit, and wasn't so, I'd go to the shows and just like, I'm not going down there, and we were GIs, we could fucking hold our own, but it wasn't like I didn't get it. But that song takes me right back to the Ritz or to the the Bonham Exchange down in San Antonio, where those freaking crazy ass Texans were freaking just learning how to do this shit, But what was about that song? I mean, that was who wrote that, and that was you, obviously, Robert. And
Yeah, that's my riff. And
pulled that.
I think that's the first song I wrote for the band where the rest of the guys were like, oh, this is great.
And you did it at
Yeah.
Soundstage?
There were other ones where they're like, what? Huh?
No, there's any song that was started off bass wise usually was Scott's riff. He would like write that, and all the other songs were like put together by Robert. He and I split the lyrics depending on what we wanted to do, and then Dave, being the natural he is, just he was just like whatever Robert presented to the band, because we practice every Tuesday and Thursday every week.
Wow, I didn't remember that.
At a friend of ours, the Merrick household, and the Merricks were Chris and Andrew Merrick lived there with their family, and the Dark, the Guns, Spike and Vein, Outerwear, and probably no parole.
Whatever Scott Lash band was going on.
I can't believe
We
their
all
parents
practiced
put up with this. This is going on probably 7 days a week, if anything.
What town was this?
And it was always cut.
And just hanging around all the time,
Yes,
even if
right
nobody
after
was
school.
practicing. Yeah.
Right after.
So this was in Shaker?
Yeah.
Yep.
On Ellesmere. The
Yep.
address is on the back of
3316
Yeah.
Ellesmere.
Wow.
Don't knock on the door. Mrs. Merrick still lives there.
Yes, but I think
Don't creep her out.
the cutoff
She's a nice old lady.
the cutoff point was a dinner, when they had to have dinner.
No more.
Yeah.
Everybody done. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like, okay.
We could practice after dinner and after the dishes were done.
Discipline. That's it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm going to play Hit Squad because that's like, I don't want to say my favorite, but it is. But I really dig that tune. So I'm going to play it real quick, and then we're going to come back and finish up with Tom and Robert from the Dark.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Go! It's wild! It's wild! It's wild! It's wild! It's wild!
So that was The Dark off their new record, Dressing the Corpse, on Scat Records, and it was Hit Squad. So that was recorded at Soundstage 25 in March of '83, it says. So what was that session all about?
You said, you mean Hit Squad?
Yeah.
You're talking about? Well, we had heard the Easter Monkeys had started recording there, and we're always looking for a new studio. It was a place off of West 25th. And the thing about it was you had to go up a flight of stairs, and it was like this gigantic room.
It was like an old second floor theater,
Yeah.
with like a full stage, curtains, and the ceilings 25, 30 feet high. I mean, It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Egg cartons on all the walls.
I don't know if Robert remembers this, but Jeff Redding was going to try to have a show there with us, the Offbeats. There was a flyer put out, but I don't think it officially got what's the word I'm looking for? Booked, because most of the bands were, I mean, it was on a flyer, but we're kind of like, huh? Why are we on this flyer? Nobody really asked us, kind of thing. But that place, the room was so gigantic. It was basically like if you've ever been to the Beachland Ballroom. It's
the
like
big side.
almost like that big, yeah.
Yeah.
But we recorded there, and I'm trying to think one of the tracks. It's a
Scream until we die, and something else I forget. Something else. Really
well, one of the tracks.
There's a dog barking.
Yeah, dog. That's what I was gonna say. You could hear the dog. This dog barking in the background. It's like you hear the in the background.
It was scary though, man. West 25th in 1983, rolling in at 8 or 9 o'clock at night in the dark, like it wasn't the Disney Playhouse that it is today.
The projects are right across the street, so yeah. It's really funny. I drove through there today when I came over to Robert's house. It's so different now. It's like everything's
kind of good.
No, it's very good. Everything's like nice.
Oh, gentrified. Okay.
Lots to play. It's like you got restaurants and you have bars.
It's a big entertainment district.
Oh yeah, big time.
Very fancy, very bougie.
Is there a new?
It could be.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, is there a new Tremont? I mean, I'm not down with. I don't know what's shaking.
Oh, Tremont is even more insane.
Really?
It's so expensive to live there now.
It's impossible.
Young crowd.
Even Thurman Alley is nice. So what crazy world is this? This is where, even when I was driving cab and lived in the neighborhood, it's like, man, I'm not picking up anybody on Thurman Alley. Some fucking cough syrup asshole passing out. He wants to go down to West 3rd to get some free glue out of the tank, and he's going to pay me in nickels and dimes.
We got to do a cab episode. Just Robert's cab stories.
Me and Ankler.
I've heard a bunch of his. That would be hysterical. I already took Shane McGowan and those guys to a bar on the West Side and played pool with him. And Shane got so drunk he couldn't play. And the Pogues are my heroes, man. I mean,
Yeah,
really.
Oh yeah, I played it.
I'm too fucked up to play.
No, I played in an Irish punk band that recorded with Cheetah, and the Pogues were my total inspiration. They were it. So
what band was that?
It's called
played with Cheetah.
The Butcher Boys, and Cheetah recorded a single with us in 2009 or 10. Frank put it out on Smogvale. It was an old Irish thing called Tell Me Ma, and he had Connecticut roots. Our bass player Paul Boynes knew him, and I knew Cheetah through ClePunk, and just kind of lark like Tom to Mike Hudson. I just was like, "Hey Cheetah, why don't you do a single with us on Smogvale?" And he was so accommodating. So we just sent him tapes down in Nashville, and we just swapped tapes back and forth. But it was one song, but it was great. He played an awesome lead. So but the Pogues were my heroes. And when Doug told me that story about these guys playing pool in some bar in the West Side, I was like, I think it was the West Side. we were in the bar when he
I
was
think it
telling
was
me the
at 5
story.
o'clock.
There was like a pool table in it. I remember that, but I don't know.
I think it was over at the 5 o'clock lounge, right down the street.
Someplace Doug would have taken me.
It's still there and doesn't suck.
Yeah, it didn't suck
that's
then.
someplace.
One of the few places that are sound.
You got to tell me some Shane stories.
Dude, I saw them
Because-
at Toad's place in New Haven in their heyday, like it's like 87, 8, right after Fall from Grace came out. Freaking it was just insane. And Connecticut had a good scene, you know. I mean, Connecticut was good to Irish music, you know, and the punk stuff. I mean, Dropkicks, yeah, but the Pogues owned it, you know. They owned it. So, you know,
whatchamacallit, I like Shane's other band, the Popes.
the Popes were cool, absolutely. And Fearnley and the rest of them have a new one out called the Walker Roaders, and the opening cut is like, this is the fucking Pogues. Like, it's like, from Fearnley was the box player, and he had all this energy. I mean, they all had energy, you know, except for Terry Woods.
Mhm.
But boy, we're off the rails. But it's with him, a kid from Dropkick Murphys, and then a kid from Flog and Molly. A dude, they're not kids anymore. Dude from Flog and Molly, the one that wore the hat that played guitar, and they're in the Walker Roaders. And the first cut is like, it's fucking 9. It's the Pogues, and then cut 2 through 9 are like, okay. Good job. Like, what the fuck? I mean, you lead with your head. You know, Lupico always said the fourth cut on the record had to be the strongest. That's what Gary told me once. So these guys just blew their wad. It was like they were fucking, Miguel Delaney. They just got the base hit, and there was 3 outs, you know, after that. But so there was a recording you guys did at Island in '84 with Scott Goodwin. You recorded a bunch of stuff there that was on the record, like anything that's not credited, I assume, elsewhere.
Yeah, that's all from the island.
Right.
I think that's basically like the Dark album
Yeah.
that was originally supposed to be released somehow, but it never did. But
yeah, there's an album plus bonus tracks, and all that stuff was on the GTA CD, and we'll get it all addressed again and in due time. Maybe not physically, but at least get it available again.
How long were those sessions? Was that just a day, or like?
I think we recorded all the basic tracks in a day, and maybe another, 3-4 hour sessions to do overdubs and then mix. And it wasn't a lot of time, but the recordings at that place were really good.
Yeah.
Some of the bands on the New Hope don't sound so good, but that's, because they're like coming in being punk rockers and they don't want to spend more than $45. So got to get it done. But, when Spike and Bane recorded there and The Dark recorded there, I think Scott was like, oh, they're actually making an album and they want it to sound good. And so, yeah, revisiting those recordings, really pleased with how they sound. Really natural and live and real.
Excellent. I know. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, us going to different studios, sometimes the recordings come out good, or they come out a certain way at a certain time, and it's just like when we finally got to Island, that place was very cheap. And
well equipped.
But yeah, it was like an interesting place because it was in the guy's basement. And he had all this medieval stuff, these swords and all this stuff on the walls.
And his cat, Wizard.
Yeah, Wizard the cat. And it was just it was kind of like being in a medieval dungeon kind of place for recording. It was a really cool place though. And it was in the middle of as I remember, in the middle of nowhere. It was going up this dirt road.
Like woods.
Kind of a little bit like Suma recording, if you've ever been out there.
Painesville or wherever that was.
That's like way out, and you're driving up, this mud. Hopefully you're not going to record there in the winter because you'll definitely get stuck. When I went there to visit Paul Suma and everything. If your car got stuck, it'd be funny. He'd just come out and be like, "You need a hand or something?" Yeah,
stuck.
But all the recordings, I'm glad we got everything recorded, and it's just like we just found studios. It usually would be like we heard about it or a band that went there, it's like, what is it? Oh, they're cool. Okay, well, we'll go too,
Yeah.
and record and see what it's like.
You were kind of, we were all, no, we didn't record often, but there was an intimidation about even going to the studio, even though you were the customer, I found. And,
Yeah.
it was kind of like, because you had to have your shit together. And, certain ones would, like we were asked once to rent a tuner because it'll save you money. So we went down to D Fiore's and rented a tuner for $25 because that was it, but it's like little things like that.
Mhm.
But you were kind of intimidated going into the studio because they kind of knew what they were doing, and you guys were just like, we just, not you, but we were kind of fuck ups, like, oh, okay, you're gonna freaking record 10 songs in 3 hours, like, yeah, that's gonna happen, right? Just
there's everybody was cool with
Yeah.
us. I mean, whatever studio we went to, and nobody, was, I don't know, it's like, was turned off by the fact that we're like a punk rock
No.
band or anything. And we were, we were good. I mean, we weren't like drunks or, we, vandalized anything or were obnoxious or anything of that nature.
Well, no, and they knew you were
We just wanted
quality,
to go in there. Yeah, we just wanted to go in there and get the job done,
Right.
and get a recording out of it.
well, and anybody could tell you were quality musicians. I mean, really, you were. I mean, and it wasn't like, just, forget the age shit. I mean, it's like you guys could have been 24 years old, just listening to it. So any engineer, any producer, they're going to look at that and go, this is a blank palette, so, and it's a challenge.
Yeah, good point.
Even guys that are, playing whatever, they could be recording disco shit, it's like, yeah, whatever, these guys are cool, we can figure it out. But I don't know, a little bird told me that Hate Song out of that session was Mary Ellen's favorite song.
That's
Yes.
that's my wife,
Yes.
AKA Scary Ellen.
That's right.
And she's still on the radio. She's
That's what I hear.
Millions of Dead Chicken Heads. Thursday nights from 11 till 1 in the morning, and WCSB 89.3.
Nice plug, Tom.
Yes.
Well, no, you have to
Anyways.
plug it. Come on.
Yeah.
She loves the song. I personally, I don't think it's my favorite song.
Well, and
but she
Robert-
loves it.
If we had stuck with the way the riff is at the beginning, that moshing riff, and maybe had another decent riff, it would be a great song. But that it's just the one riff and then just gets repeated over and over as fast as we can possibly play it. Like I just felt like we didn't leave everything on the road on that one.
Look, she just
We never took it seriously or put enough work into it.
whatever. She deserves it. Right? And when when a girl down in San Antonio is trying to teach you how to two-step,
agree.
they always say you go to the right first. And you say why? And because women are always right. So it's like you got to get them. You got to do it. But I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Before we drop the landing gear and hit the tarmac, is there anything else you guys want to cover? I know you've got a show coming up.
It's March 25th, next Saturday at the Beachland Tavern. And we're going to have 3 bands opening up: Muzzle, Kill the Hippies, and Tarted Puffins. And then the Tom Dark Band is going to get up, and at the end of the night, Robert and I are going to do a mini Dark reunion. We're going to play some songs from Dressing the Corpse.
That's awesome.
So it'll be a fun event.
1982 style.
Yeah, 1982.
Not a million miles per hour.
Yeah, it's not going to be the 83, 84 style.
Oh, we're playing No Ice,
That's okay.
but screeching metal's and plastic.
Well, I
are
talked him into it.
1982 tempo.
Yeah, I said do it for the kids. The kids got to have one
Gotta do
thrash
it for the
number.
kids.
Not. So it'll be 82 okay.
Yeah.
What can I say?
And Tom, you're still
For
pretty
you
active.
non-Clevelanders, that's
Yeah, you've stayed
Yeah,
active
never
though,
mind.
Tom. Right? I mean, you've stayed active playing
oh,
over
yeah.
the course of the time.
Yes.
I know you were.
Yeah, I've been after the Dark. I did Knife
Dance.
Dance. I did
Amps to 11, weren't you?
Dynamite Jack. I did Stepsister
I mean, that's-
and Dead Federation, and then my last band was Black Static Eye.
Okay.
And then the Tom Dark Band is basically just occasionally, like we played last April at the Beachland. We opened up for the Guillotines. Remember
Yeah, Billy.
Bill DeGidio, aka Robert Kahn.
Bill and I were good friends.
So we got up there, and it was a great crowd. We had a great night. That was definitely a ClePunk night. I mean, everybody that's involved with that old scene came out. It was packed to the rafters, and it was really good.
That's good.
So
Yeah, everybody still
we'll be
sticks
looking
together.
forward to this.
That's good. Everybody still
Yeah.
sticks together. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say we do have some. We'll be playing. Besides the album "Dressing the Corpse," we're going to have some new T-shirts. We'll have 2 versions of stickers, buttons, and hey, we have keychains.
Keychains.
What can I say?
Decent. Oh, like the
Yeah,
one you wear,
edition.
like that biker shit you have, Tom. Because I saw a clip of you singing with the Tom Dark Band. I was like, yeah, he still looks like he's good.
Oh, that
Not a
that's
keychain. You got a little keychain, like.
No, you mean wallet, bitch?
No, it's well, you can do that, but it's mostly I think to keep your keys
Right.
on.
No.
Kind of thing.
You got a little church key on it.
But it was just like, well, it's like there's a picture of the cover of the album, and then there's another version of like you would have to see the shirts to understand.
Who did that artwork on the cover?
That's something that really early Tom had some stickers made, and he got the image from this like little encyclopedia set. It's
you
like
mean-
Man, Myth, and Magic.
Yeah.
The face, you mean?
Yeah.
On the cover? Yeah, that's from this thing about,
Voodoo.
the occult and whatever, and she's like a voodoo priestess.
Yeah, she's a voodoo priestess. So I thought that was a good image for the dark. So
Yeah, he made shirts and stickers back when we started, and when we talked about doing the album, and I brought up the artwork, I'm like, hey, why don't we always called her the Dark Lady. Why don't we just use the Dark Lady for the cover?
he wanted that for the cover immediately. He's like, remember that lady? I said, yeah. He goes, that's got to be on the cover. I said, okay.
That's
I
great.
still have it. I still have the magazine too.
And fun side note, that logo, the Dark were a Hudson family affair. Mike was managing us. Sister Linda drew the logo. Mary was always helping in some way. Wife Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Brian wasn't in town anymore, so
Jeez, total.
I always thought that was kind of funny. Like when I was laying out the record, it's like, this is like a whole Hudson family project here.
Yep.
Well, he was proud of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
He really was. I mean, he was very proud of you guys.
It meant so much to us that, even though we were young and incompetent when we started, that they embraced us, that meant a lot.
Well,
because
it would have meant a lot to.
those were the bands we worshipped,
Yeah.
and that they were like, oh yeah, you guys are cool, you can play.
Right.
That was amazing.
And it was like I said, you were
just
good musicians, and had a great context of what you were doing. So I thought that's.
Well, when after we were done playing at that Tucky show, he immediately came up to us and was just like, I want to manage you guys. Like, it wasn't like we bribed him or it's just natural.
Right.
He just like came up to us and he's like, I want to manage you. So obviously we must have really impressed him. After
Did you play early? So
I also-
he didn't have a lot of bourbon in him, or
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
were-
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could have played at 4:00 in the afternoon.
well, no.
And that would still be a question. I remember hanging out at this place in Collinwood one day when he had the kid and he's in his bathrobe. This is the first time I heard the Velvet Underground because he was listening to Live 69.
Mm.
And the kid's, occupied with something, and somebody comes by. There's, a little import-export transaction happening at the doorway, and Mike's rolling a joint, turning over the record, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is what rock and roll's all about. Sit around in your bathrobe, smoking weed, and listening to the Velvets.
That's it.
I'm in.
You are in, and you've been in. You guys have been awesome. This has been so great having you guys spend time with me today, and everybody go out and get the Dressing the Corpse on Scat Records. All your merch is going to be out there on Bandcamp. Is that how you buy this stuff, or just at the door at the Beachland? So it's a one-time shot, or you can get it at Bandcamp.
You can get it at the show, but after that, you can get the album and the digital download, and you can get the merch through Scat Records.
Excellent.
Yeah, just a delay on the shirts until after the show,
Right.
basically.
And buy it.
Because we don't.
Or realscatrecords.com.
Absolutely.
Prices are a little cheaper. It's Bandcamp Friday every day. scatrecords.com.
And I know
Yeah.
it's already streaming, and I've listened to it on the streaming side. I don't want to promote that too much because it's better to buy it, believe me. But again, thanks you guys for your time, and don't forget, we're gonna play the hate song for Mary Ellen
All right.
on the way out. This
All
is for
right.
you, Mary Ellen. See you later, y'all. Thanks for being here.
See ya.
Be good.
Thank you.
Cheers.
I gotta be cool, but the truth is you're a fool. I gotta join the trend.